Oh, we're live. Still getting set up here. I don't know what I did. Awesome. Well, doesn't matter. This is another installment of the dirty work. On this vlog, I really like to just give you a closer look as to how I operate, how I think, how I function. And I break it down into a few different parts. One where it's going to be more or less a business tip of the day or what's on my agenda. Then I kind of move into current events. After current events, it's open to Q&A just for you so we could answer some of your questions. I think we get really good content out of addressing your questions. And usually your questions are questions that other people have. So by asking questions, it really helps to shed a light a little bit on what I discuss here on this channel. If this is your first time here on ENTP Life, I cover living globally and how to afford it. Ultimately, I want people who have that dream of living anywhere in the world to be able to do so. And for most people, the thing that holds them back from that is being able to afford it. So that's why there's that business touch to this channel, because at the end of the day, you need money to survive in this world. And that's what's holding people back from actually making the jump and moving into a new country. So the first thing that I want to cover as the business tip of the day is something that I've been working on over the weekend and really for the past week, which is using ads to grow my influence on Instagram. Instagram is a platform that I can honestly say that I don't really understand fully because I'm not a consumer of Instagram. I never was really into the photo sharing, and I'm not like a kind of look at me, what am I up to kind of person. So Instagram was never appealing to me. However, I understand the power of influence, and I want to be able to have as much visibility in this world as possible because that visibility creates new opportunities for me, abilities to generate income, my ability to test certain ideas and see what people really like. So having a large audience is valuable in so many ways, not just monetarily, but in some of the examples that I just gave. So I've been struggling to grow on Instagram, mainly because I've been taking content from this channel and kind of repurposing it. And just totally random as it is for me. But I started to see some trends in my own Instagram following. Like I've been progressively adding followers. I'm at like 3,800 or so right now. And I started to really dig deep into my analytics to understand what was going on. And one day I was kind of just doing a summary of that just to put together like a marketing plan for my team at ENTP Life. And I realized that some of my posts were getting above average follows and above average shares. And those are two metrics that really matter to me. And I was talking to my buddy at Freelance.com, Randy. I've had him here on the channel before over the weekend. And we always talk about what metrics are you tracking and what are your KPIs in your organization, just because it's something that a lot of entrepreneurs don't do. And if you don't have your KPIs and you don't know those, how are you making informed decisions in your organization? How are you allocating the right resources? How are you allocating the right amount of money? Without those KPIs, you're kind of shooting in the dark. So he was like, yeah, I've been tracking some data. And he showed me his data sheet. And I asked him, what's the most important KPI that's on here? And he said, likes. And I was like, why is that important to you? And I was like, how does likes on your Facebook or your Instagram translate to anything that your business is doing? And he was like, well, it shows that at least the content that I'm putting out is good. I was like, but is the content achieving the goal that you want it to achieve? I was like, why do you have your social media in the first place for your company? And he was like, to attract applicants to work for my company. Because his company, what he does is he sources resources that are bilingual in South America for placement in Europe, the USA, Canada, where workforce is more expensive. So it's a bit of global arbitrage, a cheaper way of getting the resources that you need to grow your business. So it's like, if you're using your social media to attract applicants, what does your like have to do with anything about that? Like you might put out a really funny piece that a lot of people like, but resulted in 0 new applicants. Was that a successful campaign, or was it a waste of time? And if you're tracking things like likes, these vanity metrics, you're actually tracking the wrong thing. And that's going to skew your behavior to do more and more of that thing, even though it's not doing the thing that you really wanted to do. So I gave him an example as to what was important to me. I was like, I don't care about likes. What I care about are shares and follows. I was like, because the more I'm able to grow my following, by by default, it seems that the algorithms, regardless of what the social media platform is, will push your content to about 10 to 20% of your followers. And based on how that 10 to 20% engage with your content will dictate whether or not they push it to more of your followers and to your non-followers. Okay. So the engagement on that top 10% or the 20% that's highly engaged on your channel is going to dictate what the algorithm does next. But they're not pushing your content out to everybody. So if you have 1 million followers, that means that every post that you put out is going to get on average 100,000 to 200,000 views. And that gives you a lot of control as to how you message for your organization. So having a large following, even though you're not going to reach them all in every post, kind of ensures that you have some power behind that media base. I'm going to give you a quick story. One day I was looking at I was looking at a fashion magazine. This is when I was running my fashion tech company. I was looking at a fashion magazine because I was trying to determine what's going to be the best placement for my app. And I was trying to either get a page in a magazine to promote my app or work with influencers. And when I got the media kit from this particular magazine, and what they were charging for a single page was so much more than what an influencer was charging, and that media, that magazine, they actually had less subscribers, people who were actually purchasing their magazine on a regular basis than the influencer did. So they wanted more money for this page that was completely separated from the digital world, right? My app lived in the digital world, and they had less visibility than the influencer did, and they wanted more money. And to me, that didn't make any damn sense. So of course, I didn't go with purchasing print ads, okay? And that's probably why print ads are dying. But the lesson that I took away from that was that if I were to build my own social media platform, then it's highly valuable, because look at how much they're charging for their following of 100,000 or their subscribership of 100,000. It's like, if they're charging a few $1,000s for a page, what is that attention really worth? Whether it's other sponsorship opportunities or the ability to influence yourself. So that's why having a large following is important to me. So my two metrics that I'm following on Instagram are shares and follows. I just explained why follows, but let's talk a little bit about shares. The percentage of people who share your content are going to contribute to the virality of that particular post. So if a video is highly shareable, it lets you know that it has the characteristics of a viral video. That's what helps videos go viral. The fact that one person sees it and decides to share it either on their post, on their feed, or directly to other people. If they post it on their feed and they have 1,000 friends or followers or whatever it is, then you just got a boost from one person to 1,000 potentially more views. If they do a one-to-one share, that just kind of doubles the view. So it's what allows for virality. Second to that, of course, is whatever the algorithm does, if the algorithm pushes you. So by having awareness as to which of my posts, reels, stories, whatever, triggers most people, most non-followers to follow, and has like a high sharing ratio, for me, that's highly valuable and what I'm willing to boost and promote, because I know that it's going to get the best outcome possible. Why? It's, for whatever reason, it gets above average following. So if I'm paying to get more visibility, I'm tapping into a new market, I'm paying to be seen, and for whatever reason, when these new people see me, they're following at a high percentage. And whoever does see this finds it valuable enough to share the information with somebody else. Those are the videos that I'm promoting. So if you're looking to grow your following on social or to promote any idea, the first thing that you should do is post your video, post your reel, post a standard image, whatever it is. Let it sit for about 7 days to maybe even a month. Then review all those posts. And the one that has the most follows and the most shares and is meeting the whatever your objective is. Or if your objective is likes, and hey, that's what you should promote. But for me, it's follows and shares. But whatever triggers the outcome that you're looking for the most, if that outcome is website visits, profile visits, whatever, it's all in there in your analytics. Whatever performs the best from views to that action is what you should be promoting. Now, let's see who's up in here. What's going on, Kareen? Saves too. Yeah, saves are pretty important. Thanks for contributing that. So another thing that I want to kind of tap into is what's been going on in the media, and something that stuck out in my mind, and I think is another good lesson for people, both entrepreneurs and people who are just employees in an organization. There's been a lot of press coverage about Elon Musk firing half of the staff at Twitter. In 2021, Twitter lost almost $250 million, okay? And you have to imagine at a tech company in the United States, the average worker is going to probably get between like $60,000 and $80,000, right? That's being conservative. There's going to be also much higher paid engineers and other people on the staff. So looking at their total workforce and looking at kind of the simplicity of Twitter as a tech platform, it was obvious that they are overstaffed. And one of the fastest ways for them to go from losing $250 million a year to at least break even is to reduce the workforce. Okay. And even in all organizations, you have like the top 20% of the employees completing like 80% of the work. So there's a lot of employees who are just kind of taking up space and aren't that proficient in their work or that efficient in their work either. So looking at that, I was just like, yeah, this is a no-brainer. But if you go into the comment section, this is like Bloomberg, Business Insider, Entrepreneur Magazine, all of these companies that are really pushing entrepreneurship, you go into the comments and there's so much hate on how unfair it is, et cetera. At what point in time is it the employer's responsibility to keep people employed? It matters to me to keep my employees employed because, of course, they're providing for themselves and et cetera. But if it means the difference between sinking my ship, sinking my company, and providing for other people, I'm going to choose the company because the company provides for me and it provides for others. So it's an easy decision when you're at risk of losing it all or laying off. That laying off has to be done. And I've never laid off an employee that said, hey, you know what? I'm not working right now anyway, and I know you still need the help at your office. So I'm going to come in and keep working. As I'm looking for jobs and waiting for the phone to ring, if you need me here, I'm going to work here. Never in my life has an employee done that for me. So why should I, break my back, cut my income, potentially risk the jobs of everybody else to ensure that other people keep working? And if you just do the numbers on like the 4,000 people that he's going to fire at 60,000 a piece, that's $240 million right there. Now it puts him in a position to get that organization on the right track. And if you're going into business, like a lot of you who watch my channel are getting into owning home care agencies or nursing agencies, which we, help people start out, you're going to have to make these tough decisions. And sometimes it's going to feel like you're letting your staff down. But always remember that. I've never had one laid off employee decide to come back and help me for free. Never. Right? So if it was the difference between them giving up money to help me pay my bills, they wouldn't do it. They're not gonna sit there and say, hey, Carl, you know what? Let me turn in one of my leased vehicles to help you pay for yours. These things don't happen. So how could you expect the business owner to kind of take money out of his account, food off of his table to keep people employed? It just doesn't make any sense. The business doesn't owe you anything other than what they promised you in the form of employment. Once you've worked, yes, you should be paid for the work that you've done. If you do a good job, you should be kept. If you do a poor job, or if the business is losing money, goodbye. That's the exchange. Let me see what the comments are at this point. Hello, Carl. I'm moving to Medellin in January and intend to spend at least several months there. Awesome. We'll talk about that in a little bit because I'm here now, actually. Now, at this point, I would like to kind of address some of your questions. I think we get some good questions from those who are watching. And if you guys have any questions that you want to ask me, whether it's about living globally, Airbnb, real estate, what I think of the current real estate market, stocks, whatever I cover on this channel, or if you just have a general business question, I'm open to it. Let's see what the comments are so far. Karine says, Instagram from LinkedIn. And if you look at the social media platforms, the people on them are very, very different in how they consume information, what sort of information they're looking for. But Karine says, Instagram seems to be a waste of time for service and not so much for product, I think. That's Tutu. Okay. Yeah. So for service, I don't know if Instagram is a waste of time for service. I think it's a matter of how you're presenting that service. I think if you're able to speak to the pain point and keep it localized, like if it's a local business or a local service, if you're able to message to the pain point and educate about that pain point, you're going to get the attention of people who would benefit from your service. Now, I know your line of work is home healthcare. And sometimes I talk to home care agencies who are like, I want to have this social media strategy. And that's kind of a hard area to utilize social media to benefit from, because the population that we typically service, they're not on the platforms just yet, right? When we get older and we're looking for services, we might go to Instagram or whatever is being used at that point in time, and we're going to be comfortable with that. The senior community doesn't function in that way. They'll still go to the magazine, the word of mouth referral, etc. But their kids are on the platforms, and the ones who are kind of coordinating their care are on the platforms. So you need to do things to be visible to the referral sources, people who are in that industry. So if it's nurses, physicians, and you're constantly talking about maybe case management and home care and how you're assisting those people meet their objectives, it could be beneficial because their life kind of revolves around that work. But the general public could care less because they don't have the home care need until they do. But there's a lot of services that are the same. Like, for example, I see a lot, like I see a lot of people who are promoting photo and video services. And what they do is they'll share tips on technique. So me, as a content creator that sometimes has to film, I need to understand what gear is useful, tips and tricks on editing, color, what makes the quality of one image better than the next, composition, whatever it is. So I would consume their content, learning as someone who is creating, but at the same time, I own businesses, and at the same time, I have to hire workers that actually create content with me. So I may at some point in the future require that person's services. I already trust them. And if they are providing videography services and they're in a particular location that's hard for me to get to, or maybe they're FPV drone operators, that's their main skill set, and I need one for a particular shoot, who am I going to potentially turn to for a quote? The person that I've trusted and been following for some time. So I think if you're providing a service and you want to kind of get leads out of Instagram, then you're going to have to showcase your service and make sure that the people that are most probable to use your service are the ones who are seeing it. I hope that makes sense. But I think for services, you might be better off on YouTube or just pay-per-click Google Ads overall. So let's see. Mehdi says, your content has been truly helpful, so thanks a lot. You're welcome. Just a question. I'm also an entrepreneur making money online. And I was wondering, how was a startup / entrepreneurial scene in Medellin? Well, I think it's going to be important for you to tell me what your product or service is for me to kind of give you any sort of guidance on how the workforce is here in Colombia for what you're doing. But I could say that, and I don't know where you're coming from. Are you coming from the US? So I could kind of give a good comparison. I think there is talent here in Colombia. Work philosophy is different in Colombia than it is in the United States. And what I've noticed is that the mastery of the English language isn't as cared for here in Medellin as I've seen in some of the other South American countries. For example, a lot of my workforce comes out of Venezuela, even here in Colombia, and I've noticed that they have a better English skill set than the Colombians do. And the reason for that, I believe, is due to the oil trade and the oil industry being such a influential part of their economy historically. Oil is traded in dollars. It's a international commodity. So the common language is going to be English. So there's a lot of people, the younger generation, that are still learning English, and that's why they end up being on my workforce. So you're going to struggle a little bit with English. But there's a lot of cultural overlap between the USA and Colombia, in that slightly from a social perspective, style-wise, visuals. So I think you could cultivate a workforce here, and people will be interested in, especially in new ideas. It seems the younger generation is interested in being impactful and will buy into that idea. That's exactly why they voted in their current president. They have significant ideology. They are ideological people. So you can motivate them through ideology. So it really depends on what your product or service is. So if you could give me a little more information, I could answer that a little more clearly. But just be mindful, like today is a holiday here in Colombia. It's like every other Monday is a holiday here in Colombia, and they like their holidays. So you'll sometimes feel like you're not, like people aren't motivated to work, because here people are mostly motivated. They're working to support their lifestyles. They're not working because their identity is tied to their work. So in the States, I feel like people's identity are tied to their work, their net worth, what they can purchase. That's not how it is here. So people look at their job as a way of providing the lifestyle that they want. Once that lifestyle is reached, they're kind of okay, and they want their time to enjoy their life. So that's another thing that you're going to have to learn how to manage, or just get used to. JM, do you prefer to hire contractor workers or permanent workers? It depends on the task. I like to hire the best people I could potentially find. And talent, really good talent, is hard to find. So I'd rather spend time hiring good people and keeping those good people with me than whether they're contract or permanent. Because a contract worker could really be an awesome person that is used for project-based work, when you need them, and that's the role that they play. And then you have other positions and other roles within your company that must be occupied by a permanent provider. So I don't have a preference. It's the best person for the job, regardless of what it is. Now, if you're thinking about, the 1099 versus W-2 debate, um, I really shy away from 1099 arrangements unless it's truly contractor based work. So if I was hiring like a video team to produce, I don't know, some content for me, and they charge me $20,000 to do it, and it's clearly invoiced in that way, and they're managing people's salaries, etc., then yeah, that's a 1099 arrangement, usually from company to company. If it was an independent, like HR consultant, again, that's going to be an individualized payment for a particular service. But I do not hire and prefer not to employ people as 1099 as a kind of way of reducing my employment cost. And that's something I wouldn't recommend. Laura Velasco, do you recommend to start an Airbnb right now in the US with the recession? I think it depends on the market that you're looking to start in. During recessions, people are obviously going to pull back on leisure activities. So if you're in an area that is a pure tourist town, only accessible by airplane, I think during economic downturns, those sort of places suffer a bit. If you are in a dense, highly traveled city, whether it's for tourism, business, education, work, etc., you're kind of insulated a little bit because there's more demand for space for those different reasons. So I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. Key West, Florida, beach island, purely tourism. It's not like people are going down to Key West to hold business conventions or going down there for major business meetings. During an economic downturn, something like that might suffer. Same thing with my Airbnbs in Florida. People are coming there, or Miami or whatever. They're coming there to escape the winter. They're coming there to celebrate, hang out on the beach, party, etc. That's discretionary spending. When they cut back the discretionary spending, they're going to cut things like that out. So I would be cautious about starting an Airbnb in that sort of area because people are going to start to pull back. Now, a hedge to that is making sure that you're getting things at really good prices. If you're getting properties at good prices, rents at good prices, where you can attract people at lower price points, because there's still going to be people traveling there, people with the means, people who are like, I still need my vacation. But the thing that you can control is what you pay to control those assets, to control those properties, so that as the demand goes down and your price needs to come down to attract talent, to attract guests, you're still making good money. So, when rents were kind of inching up and higher, if you locked in at high rents and rents end up coming down, those people who are leasing at lower price points are going to have a competitive advantage versus you. Let's just say an apartment went from $1,800 for a 2-bedroom to $2,300. There's a $500 difference. And maybe those apartments make about $1,000 a month. So if somebody is doing a rent to rent on a $2,500 unit in a neighborhood and you're paying $1,800, they're going to have to list their property for a little bit more to make their $1,000, right? Versus you. And if it's the same property type, same area, you're going to be able to stomach that a little differently. So whenever you're in a recession, you just have to be more mindful of the price and the market that you're servicing, but there's still potential. It doesn't mean that you don't start. It's just you have to start a little more conscious, and you're not going to win as easily as when the rising tide is raising all the boats. Go a few more questions here, and then Aqua Cat Claws. Okay, I think with Twitter, the PR gets effed up with these stories. It appears rash and impulsive on the part of their leadership. Maybe a good decision in the long term. It'll be interesting to see. It's going to be it's an absolutely good decision. They have to cut the workforce. They have to get themselves to a point where they're not bleeding money. And then at that point, you could kind of sit back and say, okay, what is the revenue strategy going forward? Right? You're not gonna save your way into making money. You can, right? Because you obviously there is some underlying business there. But after you stabilize that loss, you're going to be able to focus and use the additional capital and use the additional resources on new revenue generating activities, right? If the revenue stays at $1 billion per year, and then you cut costs by 250 billion, now okay, now maybe I'm 250 million. Now you're making 250 million more. All right, great. That's a profitable business, and that's especially if you're a hyper growth startup. That might be what happens. You have a lot of resources to get to a certain point. You kind of max out, cut expenses. Now you're profitable. But in reality, you're going to always want to be raising your revenue targets. That's what you're in business for. So you can't really do that if you're drowning. But once you get stabilized, you're able to make the right investments and try to boost that revenue. And I think they're kind of going in the right direction. If you know what his plan is with Twitter, you've got like 250,000 people or 300 million people using Twitter. It's growing out the user base, but also providing additional services like merchant services, so enabling people to sell product directly through Twitter and that sort of thing. If you look into what he's thinking, I think there could be a pretty significant turnaround on Twitter, and he has a proven track record of success. So I would bet on him. So far, even PayPal, Tesla, Solar City, the guy's a winner. So how did you get started with real estate investing? Oh man, funny story. So I got started in real estate investing as a byproduct of my friends and my fraternity brothers getting interested in buying a house rather than renting a house when graduating from college. And I came in on that property as like financial support. I had some money that was needed to make the transaction happen. And we started renting out that home as like a single room occupancy home to college students. And I saw how lucrative it was. And that's how I got into real estate. So from that property, I got a few more college rentals, and then I started to fix and flip. And that's the history there. Oh, thank you. Okay, now that we're done with the questions there, I appreciate those questions. Oh, one more came in. Kaimuja or Kaimuya. I don't know where you're based, but sorry if I butchered your name. Hi, just joined in. Hope I'm not out of the topic. Okay, I have a healthcare staffing agency. Okay, let me put that on the screen. I have a healthcare staffing agency. My employees are 1099. Am I obligated to pay them time and a half over 40 hours? Oh, man. Yeah, this one might be a little harsh. Okay, so I'm going to talk directly to you. The problem with 1099 operators is that they're typically trying to skirt workers' compensation, which actually is meant to protect the employee who's if they get hurt on the job, and healthcare workers get hurt on the job frequently enough. It also skirts having to provide benefits, employer tax contributions, and overtime mandates. Now, it is not legal or even a good strategy to use 1099 employers in a staffing agency. It should be criminal. And in some places, they're starting to treat it as such. It's not in your best interest. Yeah, it may seem like you're eking out a little more of a profit because in reality, by going W-2, your employment costs are going to be 20% higher between your FICA contributions, your FUTA contributions, Medicare, SSI, and your state unemployment, workers' comp is going to drive your cost up easily 20%. But God forbid one of your employees decides to sue you for overtime, they're going to win. And not only are they going to win, but their attorneys most likely going to convert that into a class action lawsuit. And anybody who joins in, they're going to win. They're going to you're going to get penalized for it. You're going to have to back pay employer taxes. You're going to have to potentially back pay workers' comp. It's going to be a financial disaster. Personally, in looking at companies to acquire in home healthcare and healthcare staffing, if they are a 1099 shop, I will not touch them unless it's an asset sale. And I discount the price for future potential litigation. It's a really bad idea. If you are a healthcare staffing agency, home care agency, any kind of employer, stay away from a 1099 structure. And anybody who taught you that was a better strategy lied to you. And no attorney, if you ask any employment attorney whether you should be running your organization as a 1099 employer, they're going to tell you absolutely not. All you're looking for is a lawsuit, and they're going to stay away from you with a 10-foot pole. Any buyer of your company in the future, same thing. One of the first questions they're going to ask is this 1099 or W-2? 1099, not interested. As soon as you can, convert to W-2, and don't risk it. That's my honest advice to you. It's a bad idea. Okay, so sorry to do that to you. It's just the truth. It's really a bad idea. So I'd like to close this out with a quote, and this quote is by Michael Atschuler. And I like this quote because I think it speaks to my overall mantra. The bad news is time flies. The good news is you're the pilot. It's your responsibility to do what you want with your time and with your life. If you're sitting around disappointed about anything going on in your life, where you're living, the job that you have, how you're spending your time, it's entirely up to you and within your power to change course and take your life in the direction that you want to live. That's up to you. And there's nothing stopping you except you. And that's where we're closing out today. I'll catch you in the next one. And Kamuja, if you need to talk, I highly recommend that you book some time with me through my website, entplife.com, or Passive Workforce. We consult healthcare staffing companies just like yours to start, grow, and eventually exit their business. So it seems like you've got something going on there. I'm glad that you kind of asked this question, but reach out, book some consultation time, and I could talk through some of the things. So we're actually working with a few clients now who are growth stage, who need kind of some guidance in areas like this. And I think it's definitely of high value. So make sure you take the time out to book some time, and we could talk about that offline. Take care. Bye-bye.